Of course, tonight will be with me here in the studio, Dimitri Diliani, member Fatah Revolutionary Council. Thank you very much for coming to the studio.
Thanks for having me.
And also Mr. Oded Revivi, head of the Efrat Regional Council. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Before we will start discussing this matter, let's take a look back.
Hamas is the enemies of all of us who seek peace. And a real peace can only be achieved through bilateral negotiations with those who believe in peace.
I'm very concerned about the recent announcement of plans to advance settlement in East Jerusalem, which are in clear violation of international law. Both sides need to take steps to build trust and confidence. I'm also well aware that current regional turmoil continues to pose many challenges to Israel.
Some interesting things are happening right now in the region, and it seems that the region is more important than the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Maybe it's about time to put the Palestinians aside, maybe this is the goal, and to start looking ahead, to start looking at the Saudi initiative. Maybe the Palestinians are not that important anymore.
Well, in the heart of the Saudi initiative is the Palestinian cause. The Saudi initiative is based on establishing an independent Palestinian state along the 1967 borders with Jerusalem, its capital, with a just solution for the refugees' problems, based on the 194 UN resolution. This is the heart of the Saudi initiative, and in return, not only Arab states will have normal relations with Israel, but also Islamic states, over 50 states, will have normal relations with Israel, and even Iran has approved this initiative. But if we are thinking that this initiative would put the Palestinian cause on the side, that means somebody in Netanyahu's office is not reading, or Netanyahu is not reading what the initiative has just been since 2002, just throwing it off the table and pushing it off the table without really reading it. And I understand that people like Netanyahu daydream about the time when the Palestinians would just disappear, just like any fascist, racist person on earth would dream about getting rid of the other. And these wishes are only a reflection of what is deep down inside this government and who runs this government.
If we're looking at this current situation, this actually sits in a really good way for the settlers to right now start looking outside of Israel, not to look at the Palestinians, not to look at what's happening in the West Bank or Judea and Samaria, and just to start, for the settlers who are living in Judea and Samaria, this is the perfect solution, because Benjamin Netanyahu is basically not interested in finding a solution between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
I don't think you can separate between the settlers and the rest of the population of the State of Israel. I think as a resident of the State of Israel, the Palestinian issue is on the table. I think the Palestinians are playing a game where at one day the Saudi initiative is relevant, on the other day the Saudi initiative is not relevant. And it seems like nobody is really taking them seriously, despite the attempts maybe now at the British Parliament, but we all know that even a declaration there has absolutely no meaning at the moment.
Nobody's taking you seriously.
I think this is misrepresentation of facts. At every Arab meeting, at every Arab summit, the issue of renewing the trust in the Arab initiative and supporting the Arab initiative is on the table, and it is a decision that is documented. But some people in Israel choose not to tune in. You see, Netanyahu it's becoming evident that Benjamin Netanyahu is morally, politically bankrupt. And the people that support him are going nowhere. They're just zealous, following him for ideological reasons, built on 3,000-year-old text that doesn't mean anything in today's political context or the standards of human rights.
The question is, who is paying the price? Will the people who are living in Judea and Samaria or the West Bank will pay the price, or the people or the Palestinians will pay the price? Because eventually someone will pay the price. But before we will continue talking about that, more on this same issue in this report by Shai Ben-Ari. Let's try to understand, because what is Mr. Liel is saying is basically what we are talking here in the studio all the time. The reality on the ground is totally different. The reality on the ground is that in one way or another, there are already two countries, two states living one next to the other. So maybe it's about time that one of these states will do a move and will say, you know what? We are disconnecting from you, and that's it. This is the reality, let's face it.
There were attempts to that not so long ago in the Gaza Strip, and we saw what the outcome was. Alon Liel seems to be talking with great confidence, not realizing the past or the history. And we've got a very bitter reminder just this summer as to that independent state called Gaza. What can it do to the whole nation of the Israeli population? So without talking to Israel, how Israel can actually secure its residents, I don't see any prospect in actually going back to a negotiation.
With who do you talk? Because it seems that Benjamin Netanyahu is not interested in talking with the Palestinians. It seems that Benjamin Netanyahu is more interested in talking with the new moderate Arab countries, or this new horizon that he's talking about in the region.
The reason is very obvious. Abu Mazen seems to be completely lacking control over the ground. Hamas seems to be intervening with his intentions in Judea and Samaria, just according to your last reporter, as to what's happening in the capital, Jerusalem, in the last few days. So who do you talk? It seems like both of them are not the responsible adult around that you can actually negotiate with.
With who can you talk? When Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas goes on the UN stage and talks about massacre, talks about these terms, and what he used in the UN just took him one step far from maybe reaching to a certain understanding with the Israelis.
Are you comparing, describing a massacre with actually committing the massacre? Are you trying to compare between the victim and the murderer? Are you trying to compare?
Some people will tell you that maybe the murderers that put the victims in this position were Hamas in the Gaza Strip.
Well, first of all, there are so many things that were said that need to be put in order. If you have a little kid who's poking you, and he's annoying, okay? I understand he's annoying. That does not give you the right to pull your handgun and empty it in his head. That's exactly what Israel did.
The kid wasn't poking. The kid wasn't poking.
He was shooting missiles.
Look how smart Israel is, okay?
But the kid was shooting missiles. The kid was not poking.
There are flying pipes that killed 3 people over 6 years of firing. What do you thought that is poking when compared to how many Palestinians in Gaza Israel have targeted killing or bypassers who were killed? You cannot compare anything that the amount of people that Israel, the blood on Netanyahu's hand cannot be compared to anybody. 2, Netanyahu appointed Hamas as his enemy, while we know that the number of people in Hamas that were killed out of the 2,359 people is less than 60. That means he was killing Palestinian kids. What?
Who knows those figures?
Mahmoud Zahar, who's in charge of Hamas in Gaza, he would know better than you or Netanyahu. 2, is the Israeli supremacist ideology. They tell you always what's wrong with you, what they perceive. I don't know, when he was talking about the new horizon, if Benjamin Netanyahu was smoking weed. Honestly, I think this guy's on drugs, because there's no such thing. Where does he come out with it? We don't know. He comes with it because he has followers that he needs to deviate them from good life, from peace, because if they do that, if they see the light, they will push him out of the office. Again, I repeat, he is morally and politically bankrupt, and the Israeli people are smarter than sticking with people like that.
Maybe he is bankrupt. Maybe he is giving up. Maybe what is happening right now is no way. You cannot find a solution to it. Although I cannot agree with you about the flying pipes. Let's remind our viewers this term that you are using about the missiles. But maybe when we see Israel, basically in the benefit of Israel is that Hamas will stay controlling the Gaza Strip. When Israel is saying, okay, it's better for me to have Hamas there than to strengthen Mahmoud Abbas. This is something that, for a normal person, it's a little bit hard to understand.
I think in a way the state of Israel is bankrupt in that respect. We've had different prime ministers with different initiatives. From 92 to 96% of the land was promised by different prime ministers. It was rejected by the Palestinians. Complete withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, so now Israel is accused that you withdrew without an agreement.
Yes.
What sort of an agreement? There was a withdrawal. No Jew was left behind those lines. They elected their own leadership, and what did that leadership build? An underground city which threw the whole of the state of Israel into bomb shelters because of those poking, according to Dimitri. That wasn't poking. It was disturbing the whole of the state of Israel. It stopped planes taking off from the center of Israel. And at the end of the day, Israel is bankrupt because we don't choose our enemies. We're surrounded with enemies who we have no choice but to make peace with. But it seems like they're completely not interested. They're sticking to the original plan, stage by stage. We'll do whatever we need to do in order to destroy the state of Israel.
Let me go back to the cliche. Maybe the Palestinians are not missing a chance to miss a chance again.
Look, if you are the victim of occupation and you are under occupation, you have the most interest to get rid of occupation. What lunatic would say that this person under occupation is really enjoying it? I mean, you gotta listen to yourselves, guys. Do you think that we
There's
like
no occupation in Gaza. Why were missiles flying from
There's
Gaza?
occupation in Palestine. There's nothing called Gaza and West Bank.
What's Palestine? What's Palestine?
1967 borders. The
So
state
why
of
were
Palestine
missiles
that was
flying over to Tel Aviv?
recognized by 70% of the
Why
world.
were missiles flying over to Tel Aviv?
Because you cannot.
You wanted to convince the people of Tel Aviv to be with you?
I'm going to tell you something. If let's say Hezbollah now takes over Haifa, can Hezbollah say that, well, people in Tel Aviv really have no right to come and fight me because I'm only in Haifa? Palestine is Palestine. You occupy the West, you occupy East Jerusalem. The person in Gaza has all the right by international law to fight you in any way sees fit. By the way, using arms is allowed by... No. For me,
This is outrageous
it's
precedent.
morally wrong and tactically wrong. I'm against violence for moral reasons, for tactical reasons. Things that Israel, the government of Israel, doesn't even consider. No morality, not even tactically, because you know that there will come a day that the Jewish, what you want to be a Jewish state, will be over, will be the majority. And if our struggle for a Palestinian state, which I'm not so pro, by the way, I'm leaning more towards one state solution.
You're happier to be under the Israeli government, and I wonder why.
Because
they're more moral and they will look after you better than any other Arab country.
There will be no Israeli government because we'll be the majority in a few years. There'll be elections. I will personally plant the Palestinian flag over the Knesset and change the name of the country to Palestine.
So now we know. So
you
now
have
we
to
know
choose
what your borders are.
Give me my 1967 state.
And you still fight to have the flag over the Knesset. Why
you
not?
are occupying me, killing me, and accusing me
I'm
of
not killing
being
anybody.
scary to you. The 2,359 people, the crimes that happened today in Al-Aqsa Mosque. What do you call that?
I want to understand.
Actually, settlement activity building is the most violent terrorist activity that could happen because you drive people away from the land, you arrest people, you commit all kinds of crimes, and sitting here wearing a tie doesn't make you not a war criminal because you will be chasing
You're doing an amazing service to the Israeli public relations.
Let me try to understand.
We'll send you a
Let's say after the 1967, it will reach an agreement. Palestinians and Israelis will reach an agreement. Will the Palestinians give up on the refugees? Will Palestinians give up on the, like you're saying, the fact of Palestine being Palestine?
We already did
all
that.
Israel?
How far can we go? We recognize the state of Israel. We recognize the 1967 borders. We went to the UN, asked the world to recognize 1967 borders. You have to be seriously, psychologically phobic
Are you willing
to
to give
really
up the right of return?
The right of return is included in our initiative, in the Arab Initiative, according to 194 UN resolution.
To where? The right of return to where?
The UN resolution says to their homes.
But if we're talking
to
reality,
their homes.
But if we're talking reality, Okay, let's try,
People don't have a
gentlemen.
choice.
We're talking reality.
cannot- look,
okay,
you cannot
know that
deprive me-
reality-wise, it cannot happen. It cannot happen that the
Okay.
Palestinians will have the right of return. They can compensate maybe in
Look,
money.
look,
They
look.
cannot return to their homes in Tel Aviv, in Jaffa, in Safad, in
It is a
each and
right
every place.
that
It's not
no
reality.
political representative, including an elected government, can give up on the behalf of a person. In other words, Abu Mazen does not have the right to give up my right to live in West Jerusalem,
even
only
if
2
an
kilometers away from my house.
Even if an agreement would be reached with Abu Mazen, somebody would come and say they've got the right of return to come back to Tel Aviv and create a Muslim majority in the state of Israel, and there won't be any Jewish state, right?
No, because we have polls and statistics show that less than 10% would like to return. That's one.
Polls like the elections
two-
you have, where everybody gets elected in over 90%.
No, we never. See how far you are from us, even though you live on our land. What do you mean 90%? Abu Mazen won by 60%. Yasser Arafat won by 70%. What are you talking about? The Israeli right is more like Hafiz Assad with 90% here and there. Can one of Peace Now activists win a seat in your fascist council? Answer me.
Let's try.
Answer me.
Of course, if they're confident in fact.
Answer me.
Of
Say,
course.
is there one?
No,
Is
because
there
they're not
one?
talking any sense.
Is
They
there
don't have
one?
enough followers.
Oh, so you're only smart people now? Hafiz al-Assad thought that way, and you're no more or no less fascist than him. He
Thank
is.
you.
Let's
Thank you.
Welcome. Anytime.
let's try to understand what we are talking about here, because the current situation is not something new. It's not something that Israel didn't know. Israel knew that the Palestinians are planning unilateral moves. The Palestinians know exactly that this move will drive them even far from coming back to the negotiation table, because they won't come back with this.
With who? Negotiate with who?
But if you
With what?
want to, let's say, after, you know what, I will take you somewhere else. I will take you right now, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who is trying to make Mahmoud Abbas stronger, who wants to put Fatah, and to give Fatah the control of the Gaza Strip. We know that he has different maybe things in mind by putting Mohammed Dahlan in the Gaza Strip. And when you put Mohammed Dahlan in the Gaza Strip, you start a new fight in Fatah. The question is, no? Do you want to tell me that the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas will accept Mohammed Dahlan in the Gaza Strip?
Look, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi doesn't have the right to bring Jesus Christ to Jerusalem if I don't want him to be there. It's not Abdel Fattah al-Sisi country, it's our country. It doesn't
But
matter
it's the
whether I
money-
agree or
but it's
disagree
the
with
money-
Dahlan.
but
to ask for recognition. Why are you going to England to ask for recognition?
Because this is part of the diplomatic fight that we're having with you. We
What-
don't
what-
want
what
to
the-
shoot at you. You have a
You're
problem
shooting.
with me?
When
Who's
you shoot-
shooting?
Who's shooting?
Who's shooting?
All those missiles that you call poking from Gaza, wasn't that shooting?
And all the missiles that actually killed people, that's nothing.
Who was shooting at us?
All the terrorism of the settlement activity where you live, that is not that killing.
We're not
Isn't
killing
that-
anybody.
You're killing our land, you're killing our
We're not
people, you're
killing
killing our
anybody.
economy. You are one of the worst criminals because you sit here wearing a suit.
We're
and you're
providing
committing-
you an income.
You work.
Yeah,
providing
but
you
I
a-
just want to tell you something.
Oh,
I just-
remember
just-
that
just-
you
just-
moved to
just
practical
before-
economic reasons,
Deliani,
didn't you?
Deliani, you haven't
Didn't
been-
you? Answer me. Can
Deliani.
you say no?
Mr.
And my
Deliani.
Can you
parents are
say
enjoying
no?
the fact that I'm
Can
living
you
there.
say no?
Mr. Deliani,
Let
you
him
haven't
answer
been
me.
here in the studio. Do you want to answer?
I think at the end of the day, if there would have been a realistic and strong leader that we could have negotiated, there were numerous prime ministers in Israel who are willing to give up much more than maybe the people who voted them in. I think even Benjamin Netanyahu, who wasn't willing to give beforehand, after he got elected, make the declaration of a two-state solution. At the end of the day, the Palestinians are not willing neither to recognize us or to accept the fact that there's going to be a Jewish state. They stick to their original plan, that stage by stage they'll do whatever they can do in order to destruct the state of Israel.
No, I just want to say one sentence. Maybe Abdel Fattah al-Sisi doesn't have the right to tell you what to do, but Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Arab countries are giving a lot of money to the Palestinians. So let's think about that. They are good to give money, but they're not good to tell you what to do.
We're not for sale.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for
Thank you very much.
coming. We're going out for a small break, 2 minutes break, and then we will be back. Let's relax.